Welcome back to Chapter 1, Section 1. This is Part 2. This is a little bit shorter than the first part. We're going to study the 5 themes of geography, even though this is a shorter PowerPoint. To me, this is more important than the first part. You will need to remember the 5 themes of geography and refer back to them continuously for the rest of the 9 weeks. You will always be using the 5 themes of geography in this geography course. So let's look at what the 5 themes of geography are. They are movement, region, human environment interaction, location, and place. The easy way to remember the 5 themes of geography is to remember Mr. Help. If you were to take that acronym and line it up vertically or up and down, starting with M and going all the way to P, you would get the 5 themes of geography. M for movement, R for region, H for human environment interaction, L for location, and P for place. The really tricky part about that acronym is that you have to remember the H and the E are one theme, human environment interaction. Please, please, please do not list 6 separate themes on your test when you're asked for the 5 themes of geography. Do remember the H and the E are one theme, human environment interaction. Alright, this is the way that I've set up the themes in this slideshow. Each theme has a geographic question associated with it, and then I'm going to describe what the theme is and how geographers use it and give you some examples. First theme we're going to talk about is movement. The theme question that goes with movement, or the question that geographers often ask when studying movement, is how do people, goods, and ideas move from one location to another? Or simply, movement is the way that humans interact with, move with, or exchange with each other. For example, how do I get from point A to point B? Or how do I get groceries to my house? Or how do I get this PowerPoint or this idea that I have to you? How do I communicate to you? All of those are forms of movement. So communication is movement. Me talking to you right now is communication, is movement. Any type of social media site such as Facebook or Tumblr, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, Google+, Tumblr, Snapchat, all of those are communication or forms of movement. Physical movement, the one that you probably thought of as soon as I said movement, is movement. Me going from this room I'm sitting in now to the room next door, that's movement. Trade, me trading my Diet Coke for a Dr. Pepper, or countries trading with one another, all of that's movement. And the one that is probably not thought of as movement, but is probably kind of obvious now that I've said it, is war, or hostilities, or fighting. You may want to put a star next to that one because I know there's a test question about it, about war and movement and how they're related. So make sure that you understand that war is a form of movement. Alright, our next theme is region. The question that is associated with region is how are places similar or different? Region is often misunderstood. I noticed this when I taught geography last year. Region gets misunderstood quite often. Region is simply grouping locations together based on their similarities. That's all it is. Usually when you group a place and call it a region, it has to have more than one thing in common. For example, when we talk about the South, all the states in the South are all normally grouped together because they have a similar history, but they're also grouped together because they have, not only because they have a similar history, but because they have similar landforms, similar elevations, similar climates and weather patterns, similar wildlife, similar types of demographics, all that stuff. So they all have multiple things in common, therefore they're grouped together in one region. Most of the time, a location can be part of multiple different regions. For example, Mississippi is a part of the South, but Mississippi is also part of what we call the Gulf Coast states. Both of those are regions. Mississippi is part of both of them. Sometimes Texas is part of the South, but it's also sometimes listed as being in the Southwest. Both of them are regions. Both of them have Texas in them. So don't think just because one place is in one region doesn't mean that it can't be in another. That doesn't work that way. One place can be in multiple regions. All right, there are three different types of regions. First one is the most common one that we're going to talk about is formal. Formal regions have similar attributes. They're also politically defined usually. The examples that I have for you are cities, states, and countries. Mississippi is an example of a formal region. DeSoto County is an example of a formal region. The United States is an example of a formal region. Any country that you can think of on the globe are formal regions. The next type of region is a functional region. This one's a bit more complicated, but basically, what it is, it's two places connected by movement. And the most common example I can give you is if you work in a city and live in its suburbs. The city and the suburb would then form one functional region. The city provides the function for a person, such as employment. That's the function there. And the person moves in between them. The next type of region is perceptual region. Sometimes I call this a region by opinion. Kind of talked about this a while ago when I was talking about the South. The perceptual region is a group of places that are grouped together by feeling. You feel that these places should be grouped together for these reasons. So the South, if I were to ask you to list the states in the South and then turn that in for homework, I would get different answers because different people have different outlooks and attitudes about what states should be in the South. To me, the South is Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, both Carolinas, both Virginias, and Kentucky. If I were to ask you that, you may leave some of those states off, and then some of you might actually add states like Delaware and Maryland. Some people would go all the way over to the West Coast and say that Arizona, New Mexico, and California might be in the South because they are in the southern part of the country, or they touch the southern part of the country. But it's all based off opinion. That's what a perceptual region is. Theme 3 is human-environment interaction. The question associated with human-environment interaction is how do people relate to the physical world? When studying human-environment interaction, you have to not only look at the interaction between the people and the environment, but you have to also look at the consequences of that interaction. The most common examples of human-environment interaction, or HEI, are farming, mining, forestry, and building. So if I wanted to look at how farming impacts the environment, I would have to also look at the consequences of me farming a certain good in order to be able to say that I have studied human-environment interaction. An extreme example of human-environment interaction, and one that has immediate consequences, is the extinction of plants and animals due to human fault or human error, such as overhunting, overfishing, planting something where it doesn't mean to be planted, and that plant takes over and kills other plants. So extinction or endangering species as an example of human-environment interaction. One good example of HEI, or human-environment interaction, is terrace farming, because not only do you have the farming aspect of it, but you're also building a farm into a natural landform, the mountain. You have to build the farm or the farmland into the mountain. And then you have to look at the consequences of doing that, the consequences of bringing the animals to help you harvest the plants, the consequences of planting those crops on that mountain. Do the crops help other plants? Do the crops hurt other plants? Do the crops hurt the wildlife living on the mountain? You have to look at all of that if you're going to study human-environment interaction. Mount Rushmore is another example of human-environment interaction because it's a man-made landmark carved into the side of a mountain. It has consequences for doing that. I'm sure some wildlife may have gotten uprooted when they were carving this into the mountain. So wildlife was definitely impacted by carving the president's faces into the mountain. Some plants, I'm sure, had to be removed from the cliffside. All consequences that have to be considered. And then the extreme example I've given you is the extinction of the dodo bird due to overhunting. And then the consequences of its extinction. Did the dodo bird extinction cause any problems? Did the dodo bird's extinction hurt or hinder other animals? You have to look at all of that. Theme 4 is location. The question associated with location is, where is it? Where in the world is the place that you're talking about? That's what location is. Location can either be absolute or relative. When you're talking about absolute location, you are using the Earth's grid system, which we'll talk more about here in a minute. But basically, the grid system is the latitude and longitude coordinates. Anytime you talk about absolute location, you are giving an ordered pair, if you know what that is. Basically, what an ordered pair is, it's two sets of numbers in parentheses, and one represents the latitude, and one represents the longitude, and that gives you what's called the global address of that location. Absolute location is always, always, always numbers. A set of numbers. Relative location is a description or a comparison of something's location to somewhere else. For example, McDonald's is near Walmart. Or McDonald's is on the corner of Goodman Road and Airways. Or anytime that you give a person directions to your house or to the mall, you're using relative location because you have to tell that person what things are near and which ways to go. Anytime you say that you're going to go east on Rasco Road, then north on Airways, or something like that, you're giving a relative location or a relative description. Next slide is the grid system that I was telling you about, latitude and longitude. Longitude, or lines of longitude, run vertically or up and down the globe, north to south. You need to know that longitude lines are sometimes called meridians. You need to know that. First line of longitude at 0 degrees is called the prime meridian. If you look at the visual I've given you, the prime meridian is sometimes called the Greenwich meridian. So if you look over there, it'll be called the Greenwich meridian. It's the same thing as the prime meridian. Lines of latitude run horizontally around the Earth. Sometimes they're called parallels because they do not touch. Remember from your geometry studies, parallel lines don't touch. So sometimes latitude's called parallels. The first line of latitude at 0 degrees is called the equator. Yes, both prime meridian and equator are at 0 degrees, but you have to remember that one's longitude, one runs north to south, and one's latitude, and it runs east to west, so they can have both 0 degrees. So remember, latitude parallel, equator. Longitude, meridians, prime meridian. So those are the things you need to know about the grid system. Theme 5 is called place. It'd be easier for you to call this character of a place so that you don't get it confused with location. Whenever you're talking about place or character of a place, you're wanting to give its description. You're going to tell me what that place is like. You have to tell me two parts, human characteristics and physical characteristics. Whenever you give me the description of the human characteristics, you have to tell me about culture, the economy, and the politics of that place. And then in physical, when you're going to give me the physical description, you have to tell me about the terrain and resources, the ecosystems, and the climate. So if you were to look at that picture that I've got on the slide, you would have to kind of infer about the culture of whatever place that is. You have to kind of tell me maybe what economic activities that place has. For example, this is a beach environment. They probably run off a lot of tourism, fishing. Um, Maybe they have oil offshore somewhere. And then you have to tell me about the political system. This kind of looks like a very prosperous city, so maybe and it kind of looks like it's in the Western Hemisphere, which leads me to believe that it's probably Democratic. Um, Physical characteristics that's describing this place's um, physical aspects, such as the terrain. This place is um, flat, it's beachy, it's on the coast, surrounded by ocean. The ecosystem, it looks to be kind of tropical. And then the ecosystem, you have to tell me what the plants and animals still living there. This has sea life, fish, stuff like that. And the climate would be, kind of looks like it's a tropical type environment or subtropical. So that's what you would do if you were to give me the character of a place or the description of a place. Like always, once you have finished this PowerPoint or Keynote, you need to go take the Edmodo quiz and then start on the next one. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or bring them to class with you.